Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Ferd the Nerd with your video game collecting market report for September 17th, 2024. It's a Tuesday, and I do enjoy and appreciate everyone coming through and checking out these video game market report videos. Collecting video games has been kind of a new thing, I think, for a lot of people. And I've been doing these reports for, about two or 3 months, I want to say. And it's really hard to figure out what people want to see. So in the comments below, let me know what kind of video games you're interested in. I have a pretty small watch list on what I look for. And I try and keep data as up to date as possible, but I still feel like there's a lot of video games that do really well, but they're really expensive. And what I see is there's not a lot of graded ones out there. So I'm not sure if it's because people want to preserve the video games, much like comic books, much like cards, or if they just want to literally jump back into the nostalgia machine and play these games on the OG consoles or what have you. But I think the market is growing a little bit. You might see a little bit of a pullback going into the holiday season like you do with everything else. But before I get into the list, I want to thank everyone for their support again. We're at 813 subscribers. I feel like there's not a lot of views on these videos. However, I'm getting a lot of subs, which is good. It tells me that people actually want to look at the content, and we just need to get the word out there more. So if you guys could like this video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and make some comments below. The comments do help out as well, and we'll get into it. I'll take a look at some graded sales as well, but a lot of these are CIB sealed prices that I found. The graded market's a little bit behind, I want to say, compared to other asset classes here. So it is always fun to find like these crazy sales for some games. Like there's a Super Nintendo game that I never knew about that was really cool to me. It was very retro, but it's very niche, and I'll talk about that when I bring it up. BioShock for Xbox One. I'm a little bit into these Xbox sealed video games just because the fact that the Xbox store is closing. These are going to be it's just going to get worse and worse and worse as far as sealed games for Xbox. This is $25 sealed. They don't make these anymore. This might be a nice sealed one to have just to put on your back pocket, because it's going to be hard to find these if this does blow up. But $25 ain't going to break your wallet so much. I couldn't find any graded sales of this particular piece, but it is on Xbox. I'm actually thinking about going from PlayStation to Xbox just because, I don't know, man. I think Sony just has there's only a few titles they did really well on PS5, and it seems like Xbox is putting out more content, and they're local. So I had that going for me too. But Nintendo seems to be king right now. So nonetheless, BioShock, Xbox One, this is your long-term investment of the week, if you will. But it is a little bit risky just because it hasn't popped any lately. I think the only potential it has to pop is to get it graded. Pokemon Stadium, this is like a grail of a game. This is one of those games that was printed ad nauseum in the late 90s for the great Nintendo 64 system. This is everyone knows about this game. I never played it, but if you're a Pokemon fan, you wanted this game. 2K sold, and that was sealed this past month. Probably get around 5K if you get a mid-high grade on this, whether it's CGC or VGA. But what I thought was really cool, and I think kind of the route to go if you're investing in Pokemon Stadium itself, get the console sealed. $1,250 for a sealed console with Pokemon Stadium. It still pops and it has a Nintendo 64 logo on there as well. And I think the Nintendo 64 games are fun to invest in and get sealed just because they pop really hard, and they really just do good way of presenting when you have them on your shelf. So this is the game I was talking about, not Batman on Halloween, but Excalibur 2097. This is for the Super Nintendo system. This was arguably like my system after my sister stopped playing video games. CIB goes for $100, but this is what I found very crazy about the unpredictable video game collecting market. $12K for a sealed Ghost version. I couldn't find a lot of sealed or any sealed versions of this game. This looks to me like Castlevania in future form. Has kind of that sideways kind of 2D action going for you. But the thing about the YouTube shows or the YouTube videos I saw in this game was it was really rich in color, which I think was really good for like the potential of this game, but I never heard it. I didn't even know about this game, so it's got to be pretty rare. A CIB again goes for $100, but I feel like you don't know a lot of people saying like, oh man, I remember Excalibur with the X and Caliber 2097, but man, it might be a fun game to play on your Switch or something. I'm not sure. We'll see. World of Warcraft. Now, I think arguably this is the greatest game of the online era, or it spawned kind of the online era of dudes playing games until like 3 in the morning and getting up at 4 the next day or that same time and playing it and losing relationships and friends and spending a ton of money on DLCs. Anyway, I think the collector's edition is the way to go with this, even if it is CIB, just because like I think the first issue of this was like 11 or 12 million units. There is a first print version which does not say how many like units have been sold, or a game of the year version. Like you don't want to get those ones. You either want to go with the first print or you want to go with the collector's edition. Now, to find the CIB or the sealed versions of the collector's editions, it's impossible. Or if you do, you're going to pay 10 grand at least. Ever since I've been watching this World of Warcraft, the lowest I've ever seen was like 5K. And we reported that on the show a long time ago. But, you know, this is something that's like, you can't really put into concept of like supply and demand with video games, right? Because they print out so many just because studios need to make their money back on these games. But I mean, this spawned a movie, for God's sakes. And it's really hard for video games to spawn a movie because there's just a lot of money you have to put into producing a movie. But like, I don't know anyone that didn't know about World of Warcraft back in the 2000s. I never played it, thank God, because I was too afraid I'd get addicted to it. Like I did Final Fantasy, was that 12, 13? I can't remember. But anyway, if you are in the market for it, I go CIB because it's cheaper. But if you got some money, man, those 5-figure sealed ones are nice too. One Piece Grand Battle from PS2. I think this is a great deal for $100 for a One Piece property that probably a lot of people didn't get because it's Bandai just distribution. And another thing, you know, One Piece wasn't nearly as popular as like Pokemon was on Nintendo. I think that One Piece has the potential, as far as video games are concerned, to kind of follow Pokemon's lead. But if you're gonna try and invest in these One Piece properties, I go for the sealed versions of PS2. The CIBs just are too cheap to like even think about investing. You're gonna want to get a sealed one and get that bad boy graded. But yeah, I think One Piece, with the popularity of the show, the trading card game, One Piece in general, I mean, it's hit mainstream media. I think the PlayStation games are kind of the route to go too. So, but nonetheless, One Piece Grand Battle PS2, $99. I don't think that's a bad deal at all. Next up, a classic, Zelda. I just wanted to do, I like to do like a one classic video game like per show, but I know this is a pretty like easy one to do. But I just got done playing Breath of the Wild. Finally beat that game, and arguably I was thinking of like, okay, what are my favorite Zelda games of all time? So I'd say Breath of the Wild is number one, just because of the way that the story's told, the way you had to figure out the story. It's not your, you know, Zelda's not in the game until like the end, basically. And there's a sequel, which I don't know if I'll play, but the second, and that's a very close second, is probably what is it? Zelda on the Super Nintendo, A Link to the Past. I think, you know, playing the reverse worlds, I played that game like 3 times over. I may play it again on my Switch. I don't know. We'll see. But, you know, this is the game that spawned it all, right? Is Zelda the greatest RPG ever? I would argue that it probably is, just because, man, if you think about it, the title of the game isn't even the name of the hero. It's the name of the gal you save, which I think is a pretty cool concept. And it's pretty. It's who wanted to dress up as Link versus Mario when you were a kid. I always went Mario I always went Link myself. So, and if you ask me Mario or Zelda, I'd say Zelda all the way. The latest sale of this game was 5K. There was a story that came out a while back about a sealed version of Zelda in first print sealed story. And I don't know how much that game went for. Oh, so it looks like it went for 250,000 at Heritage. And I think it came back in 8.5 sealed grade. But it's a pretty impressive story. Like basically, kids' parents worked at Zelda or at Nintendo, and they were given a sealed copy of this game. They never played it, but they just kept it for whatever reason. So 20, 30 years later, finds it. And there's some authentication stuff with it. And essentially what the authenticators found was it was one of the first actual and only original sealed game, preserved, all that shit. Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was really cool. It's a cool story to have about a game. I don't have 250 grand to sell or to buy that game, but I don't know. I wonder if I would keep it. Like if I was like in my particular like income level as of right now, I probably would keep it. Good for the person that sold their version. I mean, $250,000 for essentially, this piece of history. I think it's a solid sale anyway. I don't know if it's the most expensive video game ever sold, but it's got to be up there. So I know pandemic levels. I think there was one sold for like $750,000 for a Zelda game, graded as well. But yeah, crazy. Anyway, something that I will always cherish and remember from the memories as a kid, and Zelda is definitely that. Before I get into the next slide, we have about 3 left. I just want to again thank everyone for watching the shows. If you do like our shows and our content, please hit that like button, subscribe, watch all the other videos, watch this through the end. I'll try and do kind of an ending cap in the next video to watch. But yeah, these videos are getting some pub, I would say. And yeah, join us on Sundays in the morning. We are live. We do giveaways every once in a while. I haven't done a ton of giveaways because I haven't got any super chats. So, but we'll see for next time. If My Heart Had Wings, this is a Nintendo Switch game. There was some controversy with this game because there is some like nudity and sexuality in the game. The story with this is they, when they did release it on the Switch, they did tone it down a little bit. So I think there's some potential though for the collector's edition of this game. If you again are kind of looking at something to hold long term, get it graded. I don't know the exact story behind this game, but there was a lot of fandom when it came out. I think a lot of fandom was a little bit sad when they found out that it wasn't it was edited or toned down for the sexuality in this game. It's kind of funny, but I think there's a little there, even with the non-controversy in this, the discussion itself, I think is good enough for nostalgic kind of like parameters to, have something like talked about. But for $69.99 for a newer game, yes, you're probably it's kind of a risk and you may have to wait a long time. With that said, this could be one of the last physical games for the Nintendo Switch. It's funny. I just talked about the PS5 Pro coming out, and it's coming standard with no disc. You have to buy the disc drive. I thought about buying a PS5 like Special Edition Pro and then buying the disc drive and just holding on to it, kind of with the same notion of this, that could be the last physical system of Sony, or like, arguably maybe Xbox is going to go that way, and maybe Switch, their next generation console that's going to come out, like maybe they go that route too. But it might be a couple years until those consoles come out. But just something I kind of thought about, like, wow, it'd be kind of cool to have the last like console with a disc drive in it. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, If My Heart Had Wings, Nintendo Switch Collector's Edition. And last but not least, yeah, this is the last one. I wanted to put something kind of different. I see these all the time in like video game stores, and I never saw it like in retail stores or at Target or like GameStop, what have you. But Amiibo, the Sephiroth version, this usually goes for like $30 in like, fairly good condition off the shelf at a secondary video game store. But I thought just with the fact that this is on Nintendo and not like on, PlayStation, and Final Fantasy, essentially being a starting off on the PlayStation, but you can find it on other like, systems now. I thought this was kind of a cool thing to collect, and the figure's actually pretty like well detailed as well. I don't know if it's going to be a thing, but as a fan of Final Fantasy 7, and if you're curious of like Final Fantasy 7 like collectibles, that's kind of a cool one to have for $30. Keep it in the case, and it just presents really well. I think all those amiibo figures are really cool in general. I never played, but anyway. Well, that's the show for today. I do appreciate everyone watching. If you guys, again, could hit that like button, subscribe, and tell all your friends. I'll keep doing these video game market reports, video game collecting market reports. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good week. We are not almost there, but we'll get there eventually.